You are now listening to the Project Kuwait. Where we stop at nothing to bring you the right facts on health, fitness, and psychology. Featuring some of the world's most experienced professionals so you can learn, live, and live. With your hosts, Meg, Dr. D, and Mehdi.
Especially as a trainer, expat as well, or being in the fitness industry, they're super excited to get you to eat all the food and all the sugary stuff. Like, it's almost like if they get you to do it, it's like permission for them.
Because everything is so still outside, there's barely any cars. With this lockdown, there's nobody outside except for those 2 hours. It's kind of almost eerie, like the neighborhoods are empty and then you hear the call to prayer. It's kind of wild to not have any other background noise with it. It's religion at the end of the day, and everybody has a different take and a different experience, and people can be very religious, and that doesn't mean that they want to convert you or to push their religion on you.
I never felt pressured to participate in it or to convert or, any of these things. And I just loved this experience that I had with this family is when they would talk about things that were religious. It was always like my story and your story. Like, our story says this, whereas other stories say this. And I really appreciated that outlook. Just a really cool community experience where everyone was brought together.
All this and more in today's episode.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Expat Series. I am joined today by Danica and Ashley. Danica's been on the series before to talk about arriving in Kuwait as a American woman. And Danica, how have things been since the last episode?
It's been great. I love staying home all the time and having no work. It's been fabulous. I imagine this whole retirement will be like. I hope. Maybe. I don't know. I need to exercise more. That's the only thing. And eat less. Maybe drink less too. Whatever.
Haram.
Yeah, I know. Well,
and we've got Ashley, who is joining us from Kuwait. Ashley, you are on a severe lockdown. If anybody is knowing what Danica's in retirement, but Ashley's in prison, it seems like.
Yes, I'm here in Kuwait. We are doing a 22-hour lockdown. So we have 2 hours a day to be out and free. And that pretty much is only for outdoor exercise and nothing more. So we're trekking along here in Kuwait and trying to do our part.
Oh my goodness. And on top of that, it is Ramadan, which is what we wanted to talk about today as Ramadan as expats and experiencing that. I think the first thing that we want to get into with that is just the whole confusion that can be caused from an expat perspective coming in new to Ramadan of when does Ramadan actually start?
Yeah, that's for sure. It's definitely tough. I guess because in the US, like, it's marked on a calendar. Like, we're just like, Ramadan starts on this day. That's just what we know. And then I get to Kuwait and it's, okay, Ramadan's coming up and we're getting, the schedules all ready for the gyms and stuff. And it's like, okay, so what day? And then they look at us, oh, we won't know. Maybe 12 hours, maybe 24 hours for, maybe a few hours for. I'm like, what? So we don't even know what day it's going to, like, we have no idea. It's like moments before we have to just suddenly be like, boom, okay, everything's changed. And people just know. I'm like, what? This is craziness.
If we did our holidays like that in some of our major cities, with holiday hours, when does it start? The people would be in an uproar. They would absolutely just not be having it. Like, they want to know when they want to know in advance. And here everyone's like, of course, we have to wait. I'm like,
yeah. The moon will tell us exactly when. I always love that. It's our business owners that would always say how advanced things have become in the world. But the start of Ramadan is something still we can't predict ahead of time. Someone with a telescope in Saudi has to tell us exactly when it's starting. Definitely cause some anxiety, especially if you're running a business during Ramadan or even just preparing as an expat. I imagine kind of similar with this lockdown though, Ashley, when you guys got the 22-hour notice, how much notice did they give you guys before that was happening? Was it kind of the same thing of oh, today it starts, or was it a little heads up?
This entire lockdown, I mean, we're on 2 months now. We're on 2 months that we have been under no gyms, lots of restaurants either closed or just takeout. That's when that started. Everything, some of it's just been changing very quickly. It's announced tomorrow's curfew is going to be something new. With this one in particular, they did give us, there was lots of rumors, as there always is in Kuwait. And there's kind of lots of talk and nobody's sure and no one's confirming anything. But I think we had about 2 or 3 days notice, or maybe 2 days official notice, and maybe 3 to 4 to 5 days about everyone talking about a full lockdown. We didn't know what that was going to look like. But of course, every change sparks like madness and trips to the grocery store and stocking up on everything and massive lines and absolute chaos.
Yeah. I think I always enjoyed that about the Ramadan time though. Like less traffic. We can talk about some of the perks of it. Less traffic. Grocery stores. There are certain times, absolutely, where those were a little less packed if you could go kind of at the time where everybody else was maybe breaking fast, or in the evening time. It was like prime time for grocery shopping. I guess how else were your guys' lives adjusted as an expat during Ramadan?
I think the nocturnal lifestyle for sure. I mean, I remember my first year, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, now mind you, I had been like studied abroad in Lebanon and I was there for like kind of the start of it and all that, but it was different in Kuwait for sure. And I don't know, it felt a lot more, there were things that I loved. I felt like there was this like humbleness and people were, trying to do all these things. But then there was this other side of it. It kind of where, okay, yes, we're doing all this. But then every night of the week, it's like a new dress, a new fancy this. We're going to do this giant dinner. I'm just like, oh, what? I mean, I guess that's exciting and it would make a little more fun, shall we say, having like some events to go to. So I thought that was really interesting. Everyone is like pretty much dead during the day. And then it's like night comes and it's like, okay, time to party in a sense, celebrate. And it was just totally different. Being up till 4, 5, 6 in the morning. You're literally up all night. You're eating, drinking. And then it's like, okay, this is it. Take your last bites. All right, we're done. It's like, all right, now let's sleep and do what we got to do. So I thought that was really kind of interesting. That whole schedule for sure being like, okay, now I got to work from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. I'm not used to that for sure. So having to kind of switch my schedule was interesting, fun, but interesting.
Yeah.
There's always that switch in where it's hard. And especially me personally, I'm someone who likes to get up pretty early, and switching from that, it like takes a while to adjust. And especially if you're not fasting, the motivation to actually do that or to stay up late can be a lot harder to switch into, because you can eat and drink whenever you want in your house. You may or may not have celebrations to go to every single night, but switching into that could take some time. And then you're like, yes, I've adjusted. I stay up every day until 2 a.m., which is pretty late for me, or even 3. And then you're like, wait a second, in 7 days, I'm going back. Like, wait, I'm not ready. So it's like by the time you get in, for me anyways, I found, okay, now it's time to start transitioning back out the other way.
Yeah, it takes like 3 or 4 weeks to get into the routine. And then by that time, it's time to break it. I know, it's emotional. I was going to say, did you guys ever practice any fasting for yourself during that time? Or did you stick to your same routine?
Actually, you're right. No. I did the first year. I think it was 5 days or something, like until the weekend, basically. And it was fine. Honestly, it wasn't too bad. But my biggest mistake was I did go work out during the day. And I think it was me and Steph. We did some like box jump. This is how bad I felt during this workout, because I can remember what some of the moves were. It was that long. It was a long time ago, but I remember this. I thought I was going to pass out. Thought I was going to die. Felt like I was going to throw up. I don't know how, because there was nothing. I just was like, I can't do this. It's like, I don't know how members would come into the gym before breaking fast to work out after having fasted all day. I mean, with no water, I think that was the biggest thing, is the lack of water, and then trying to work out. I don't know how, and man, we would have full classes for those freaking 3 p.m. And I'm just like, I would have died. I mean, maybe I guess you get used to it, but no water. Yeah, that was definitely the most challenging. And in that heat, I think the first year there, I think it was in June, I believe. It was like right after I got there. It was shortly after I got there. Ashley, were you there yet for the first?
I came in July, and it would have been, it was very close to when I came. So for sure it was hot.
Yeah. So I think that, oh my gosh. And then obviously the daylight hours they're extended because it's middle. So I was like, holy crap. People who are coming in to work out before breaking fast, that's impressive, I have to say. Very impressed.
I think it definitely goes to like how you adjust the rest of your life with it. I mean, because I think there's times where I fast now, like I go to bed, I wake up, and I don't eat until after I've been awake for a few hours. So if you're going to bed really late or like early in the morning, you know what I mean? And then waking up and it's at 3:00, like maybe it's only been like a couple of hours since you've been awake. And it just really depends on what you did, I guess, that night for nutrition and things to get you going. But that was definitely a learning curve, because I think the first time I tried it as well, my first year, I had the worst headaches. I felt awful, and it was the no water that was extremely difficult for me. And then I have kind of a health history of like hydration issues anyway. So I never really felt comfortable going without the water during the day. So I would do like a no food fast after those couple of years, but I never participated the full time. I just didn't want to go that long. And I guess I don't have the tradition and religious attachment to continue going on, but I would always participate for a week. I did want to know what people were experiencing and what was the experience of it.
I'm a bad expat. I never did it. Well, and this year is very different because I'm not working in the same environment that I was working in before. So if I was going to do it, my ship has sailed. And of course, with this lockdown and my working hours not changing, luckily, just lucky to have working hours, I realize, but just not like I work during the day, during the week. So I can't really be awake at night. I can't really go into a Ramadan schedule, even if we weren't in this lockdown. So my ship has sailed. I'm sorry. Sorry, Kuwait.
Did you guys ever get the dress and go to some of those parties and events in the evening and experience that breaking fast?
Yes. That was a great experience.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorites too. I remember going to the souk to like pick out and I'm going to butcher the name, but dara, I believe is what they're called. The fancy dresses, we'll just call them. I used to get made fun of how I said that word all the time. But I remember going to the souk to like pick out your material and like the style of the dress that you wanted and everything. And that was a really fun experience. I still have mine, actually. I should bust that out sometime. Wear it around town.
I never went to one. I never was invited. So I guess says a lot. Thanks a lot, people.
Sad.
Yeah, I know. Right? The only thing I was there like a few times at Mega Box when the guys would be like, they're doing a big thing, or, the girls would come to the gym and dress up that like we would do it that way, but I never went to someone's house specifically for it. At least not that and if maybe I did, but it would have been a little bit less of a formal, just kind of the friends, family, whatever, just doing it at home, small thing. But yeah, never the whole, I definitely saw the Snapchat, Instagram story stuff of how elaborate. It's probably a good thing because I probably would have ate those little dough, whatever the heck those things are that are covered in that honey. I would have eaten them all. I don't know what it is about. It's literally just fried dough with some sort of sweet honey on it. But man, I love those things.
I remember being really excited about going to the feast, right? Because you've been fasting all day. And then I felt like I was the only person eating. The same thing. It's like all this food was sitting out and I'm just like, why? Like I'm ready for like my fifth plate. What is going on? Why isn't everybody joining in? And all the sweets. There was tons of sweets there, but shocked at the end of the night of how much food gets boxed up and packaged away. And it gets sent to a lot of good places. So I do appreciate that it's not so wasted. I don't think, at least the experiences that I had with it, but yeah, I felt like it's kind of like at the weddings too. Like they have those giant buffets and then you feel like you're the only one eating the whole time. And you're like, what is going on? Why is all this food here if we're not supposed to eat it?
I remember, the one wedding that I went to, and it was, I think it was me. It was me and a trainer. I won't use their name, and we're sitting there and I'm like, it's midnight. I didn't eat dinner. I am starving. Okay. They gave me a little cookie and some tea during the wedding. Yeah. I walk in and it's an entire banquet room lined with buffet of food. It's like anything I could possibly want. Everyone and all the women go and sit. No one's going to get food. I was like, I finally looked over at the other time. I was like, someone's got to be the first one. I was like, let's do it. It's like once, I don't know. It's like, it's just funny. It's always the expats are the ones that are like eating all the food. I'm like,
well, especially as a trainer, expat as well, or being in the fitness industry, they're super excited to get you to eat all the food and all the sugary stuff. Like it's almost like if they get you to do it, it's like permission for them to eat it like later on, maybe when nobody's watching. I don't know if that's what's happening, but it's like if they can get you to go in and have a bunch of plates full and just stuff yourselves, then I feel like they like celebrate that. They find it like the trainers are being naughty and they think that's so funny.
It's like, and it's like they know that like a lot of the trainers don't do that obviously like on the regular. So it's like, I feel like it's also when you go to anyone's house and they want to feed you, there's lots of different cultures around the world that just need to feed you to show you like that they love you, to celebrate. So I feel like it's kind of that too. Like, these people do not do this often. So now they're here and they're eating our food and they're really enjoying it. So it's almost like you're saying, they want to like celebrate that even more. Like, yes, I can do it too.
So sweet.
Yeah. No, and I think too, what also was kind of exciting is it was being kind of brought into something, and you could tell, like I said, even just going to how excited people are to share this experience. So I think that was hearing, oh, this is what our family does. This is what we do. Count this down together. And on these days we do, and just to kind of be a part of something that is so important. We obviously have Christmas and Thanksgiving. We have our own holidays that we have our family traditions, now you have a whole country that's coming together and doing something all at the same time. And you kind of feel that very community side of it. And it is really exciting to see how just happy they are to kind of show it off. And, I don't want to use the word show it off, but just kind of show us and bring us into that and let us see a part of their lives. That was pretty cool.
I agree. That inclusion of just, getting to experience something so different. Like you said, Ashley, too, just the generosity behind it of wanting you to feel welcome and wanting you to feel like well fed. I feel like that's something I feel like my mom is like, she's like that person who's like every half hour is offering you food when people are over, she wants to make sure like everyone's fed. And if you guys have ever been to any of my Thanksgivings or dinners, like I cook for 100 people when I have like 6 people over because I just want to make sure everybody is fed and comfortable. So I identify with that part of the feasting. I appreciate that as well. Once I started doing personal training, I had a couple of clients where we would do swimming lessons right before breaking fast. And so we would do the swimming lessons. And then afterwards I would stay and I would break fast with them and have dinner. And it was just great conversation and great connection. I love the tradition of it. It was like every Wednesday, we got to do that. And it was wonderful food. And it was nice to see how they were starting to, I've been working with them on not only their physical health, but also like nutritional health. And it was nice to see some of the traditional items that they had kind of like healthified after a while, instead of, a bunch of fried things, how things were prepared a little bit differently. But I also remember, and this is just something as an expat too, people think about living in a Muslim country is, I never felt pressured to participate in it or to convert or, any of these things. And I just loved this experience that I had with this family is when they would talk about things that were religious. It was always like my story and your story. Like our story says this, whereas other stories say this. And I really appreciated that outlook in just educating me more in about being Muslim and Ramadan and their faith and everything, of just looking at it from that perspective of no pressure, but just a really cool community experience where everyone is brought together.
I mean, when I moved out to Kuwait, this was a few years ago, but some people had questions and were like, oh, are you nervous? Oh, do you feel like just questions out of ignorance, just of not knowing. And it's religion at the end of the day. And everybody has a different take and a different experience, and people can be very religious, and that doesn't mean that they want to convert you or to push their religion on you. And I think that a lot of the times we kind of have that idea that if somebody is religious, regardless of what religion they are, that they are going to want to convert you, rope you in, tell you about it, and make sure that you kind of see it from their side. Whereas really it's more, I haven't had that experience here personally. And, people can be of varying, I guess, levels of religious and just want to share tradition and experience with you, not any ulterior motive or anything like that.
Yeah. I think the call to prayer is still like one of the most calming sounds to me. I miss it. And I love it, especially during Ramadan time when everything was just kind of like slow and still and you'd get that call to prayer. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
It's crazy now because everything is so still outside. There's barely any cars. With this lockdown, there's nobody outside except for those 2 hours. It's kind of almost eerie. Like this area is absolutely empty. Neighborhoods are empty. And then you hear the call to prayer. It's like, it's kind of wild to not have any other background noise with it.
Right. The noise pollution is so low right now.
Yeah.
I think because especially being Western expats, we're so used to that society being divided so much when it comes to religion, and then to move to a place where, like you're saying, although it is so built into the culture and it really does make a lot of the things that happen. I mean, obviously holidays, but just anything they're doing, it does play a role in building that culture and those traditions. So just being able to be there, you kind of learn a little bit more about, okay, what is it like to be a Muslim and things like that. And I just think during Ramadan, it's people really do come together and they bring those traditions. And it's just, this is something I feel like people don't talk about too much. Everyone, when they think of Ramadan, they think, oh, fasting, that's pretty much it. But there's a lot of like giving back to the community and helping people that are not as well off and things like that. So a lot of people kind of forget about that it's not just about fasting. They also are giving back to their communities and going through kind of their own stuff and kind of connecting to people that maybe they wouldn't normally have any association with, because it's just kind of how the world works. So I think that also it's pretty cool to see just how kind everyone can be, and everyone helping each other out, especially when I feel like most of the time, no matter where you're at, we tend to kind of get a little self-absorbed in our own lives and kind of forget about that stuff. So that was one thing that was pretty cool about being there during Ramadan.
Yeah, that is a big staple of the holiday, where you think like Christmas, it's all about like gift giving and everybody has their lists, and the charity side is something that's kind of more minimal with it. But I remember it was my first trip. I think my first Ramadan must have been in August when I moved out there, in the Eid following. So big holiday that everybody takes off to go travel. I think I did that in September, and I went to Morocco. So I was still kind of new to the region. And when I went to Morocco, I didn't understand it when I first arrived, but people everywhere had sheep with them. And so like on the back of scooters, like everywhere in the trunks of their cars, like the backs of trucks, like it was
You're like, oh God.
I'm like, what is going on? And finally, then the host that I was staying with had explained to me that Feast of Sacrifice was coming up and this is what everybody was preparing for. And I just didn't understand it, and everything was closed too, like the time that I was there. So I picked a horrible time to travel, especially to a country that recognizes these holidays, because nothing was open. I ended up having a great time, but I remember my host had gone to his family's dinner that day. And part of it is like 1/3 you keep for your family, 1/3 I think you share like with your neighbors. And then the other third you donate to, someone who's less fortunate. So I was really fortunate. He brought back some of the feast for me and we grilled it at the place, and I got to share some of that and learn a little bit more about the Feast of Sacrifice. But I also remember being horrified at literally like bed frames out in the street, like metal bed frames were like what they were grilling the sheep on. And it was just like sheepskin and sheep parts everywhere and roasting on bed frames. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what is going on?
It's fresh.
Fresh, yeah. But then having that feast, brought back and shared with me. And I thought that was really meaningful. So I had quite the submersion experience when it came to Ramadan and Feast of Sacrifice, all of my first few months of living in the Middle East.
That reminds me of the time that me and Ashley were at Megabox, speaking of being horrified. And they were, I know you know what I'm talking about now. And
I already thought about it. Yep.
The trays of like the rice and meat, but there's no utensils. And they just hands in, but then it was.
Hold on a second. Wait. It wasn't just eating without utensils. Fine. I can sit on the floor and I can eat with no utensils. I think it's great. I'm all for it. It wasn't that.
It was them sticking their hands in their mouths. Fingers all in. This is going to sound terrible, but like a couple knuckles deep in their mouth. All right. Like it was like, whoa. And then what do? Same hand. They don't, no napkin use. Dig right back into that giant plate of rice. And we were like,
My first experience with that was at the firehouse from a couple of, probably the same guys who brought it to the Megabox dinner, I'm imagining. Was it firefighters? Because they invited us.
Probably.
My first week in Kuwait, we went to the firehouse. It's so funny. It actually popped up on my time hop today as photos because I arrived in May. So it was like right around this time. I'll have to share some of those on the Instagram. But same thing, firehouse. And it was plates of food and fish and everything set out. And they were teaching me how to roll up the rice, in a very particular way and dip it in the sauce and then pop it in your mouth basically. And it was just all hands in. I remember Steph had gotten a manicure that day. And she had some kind of blue nail polish on, but I think from dipping her hands in the tomato sauce so much that day we went to go wash our hands and her hands were definitely two different colors for her nails. I was like, oh man, and we were all eating that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think I just grabbed a plate and just kind of pushed my section off a little bit. I don't know. It's funny that I'm not normally that picky but I was just there is a lot of saliva. Like it's all
There's
in there.
hands,
And
there's saliva, there's falling rice that isn't making it into some mouths and it's going back on the plate. I was like, I'm actually not going to be able to participate in this. I've taken a bite. Now I can't go back.
Now I'm done.
It was delicious. It was fabulous. Wish I could have gone back, but I could not.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
I went back to eating the sweet dough ball things.
101 guide for new expats, and you get invited to those dinners. Maybe just bring a fork for yourself. Scoop some off.
Yeah, just get a little plate right in there. That was hilarious.
It's taught us to be so open-minded. I love it.
Yeah. That was great. I loved that. But yeah. And of course, like you're shocked because you're not expecting it. And then you're like, well, you don't want to be rude.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know what to do now. Just like, that was fun.
There was one year, I remember, I was on holiday during Ramadan, and I was actually in Arizona, and it was Ramadan time. And my sister and I had went and done a workout at a local CrossFit gym. And I remember the owner telling me that he actually has a lot of weighty clients that are studying. Apparently the trend is they start off in Colorado and then they drop out from Colorado and they come down to Arizona. I don't know if Colorado is a little too liberal and people get in trouble and then they come down to Arizona. That seemed like the trend. And he had a lot of clients that were recognizing Ramadan at this time. So it was a little slow in the afternoon. He said most of his people would come in the evening. But afterwards, we went to this cafe around the corner, and walking in, and I could, at this time, I had developed a pretty good ear for Arabic. I can't speak it, but we can recognize conversation sometimes. And even the difference, I don't know for you guys, have you been able to pick up even the difference between like Saudi and Kuwaiti? I would think I was able to differentiate between the two, but I could tell that a couple of the guys in line that were talking there were Kuwaiti. It just sounded very, very Kuwaiti familiar to me. And then I just asked them, I just said, are you from Kuwait? And they were absolutely surprised. And they were also eating during daytime. So I was like, it is Ramadan right now. We had like a good laugh about it. And obviously they were taking a break. But
they were at Arizona State.
That's why they were at Arizona. Yes. Some troublemakers. But they actually knew the gym that we worked for. And so it turned into a really good conversation. But I remember that being really funny how it's got to be hard when you're celebrating it outside of the country, because especially in those summer months, like I'm thinking about where I am now, it doesn't get dark until like 11 o'clock here. And so if you're following like sun up to sundown, like that's just extremely difficult. So I think as it starts to move into some of these winter months, it gets a little bit later each year. I think that's got to be a big relief for a lot of people participating.
Definitely. And I think celebrating any holiday when you're used to having not only your entire family and all your friends and an entire nation behind you, go celebrating that same holiday with the same gumption, that it's not really even feasible. And then you add the fact that they are fasting. So it's something that's physically demanding and very challenging to do. It must be very hard, because even for me, celebrating holidays here, sometimes I forget about the smaller holidays. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like Easter, not particularly religious, but that is a holiday that I would usually celebrate with my family. I have never remember which weekend is Easter. I don't know until I happen to be talking to someone at home, or I see an ad or just something. And I'm like, oh, right. But at home, I wouldn't forget because it would be on the calendar. We'd be doing something. We'd be having a dinner, celebrating. And that's just Easter. It's just one weekend and I don't have to fast.
Right. Yeah. Plans are like months in advance for families getting together and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, work schedules. I mean, obviously in Kuwait, I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the Middle East, but in Kuwait, your work schedule is completely different. People, I know that's what we joke. We're like, we got to get everything done before Ramadan happens, especially if you got to do anything with the ministry, because it is not going to happen.
Nothing's going to get done.
Nothing is happening. So people aren't working normal hours. They're either basically not working at all or on a massively reduced schedule. So it caters to you being able to fast, to you being able to, make things work. Whereas, if you come to the States, classes aren't stopping. Your work schedule is the same. If you're supposed to work for 8-9 hours, your butt is still working for 8-9 hours. So I feel like that also has to be completely different too, because you're like, okay, now I got to not eat or drink and watch a bunch of people eat and drink around me and still pull like an entire schedule. So I can imagine that's pretty rough.
Yeah. Ashley, where'd you go?
We lost Ashley.
Yeah. We'll just have Emmanuel maybe cut out the awkward silence part. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, she's back. Woo!
I'm here. I came
No, right.
back.
We'll have Emmanuel edit out that chunk. But yeah, I suppose any last thoughts with Ramadan as an expat or?
For us, we see it too. Like if you're not somebody who is participating in fasting, it can be really challenging to just kind of remember, maybe it's just this year, but focusing on making sure you're not eating or drinking outside. Whereas if you're somebody who usually packs your own lunch, or one thing I always do is I drink water while I'm driving. Always. I always have a water bottle with me. It's always nearby, and just making sure I put that in the back seat. And this year is a little different with the lockdown. I kept forgetting about those rules, about not chewing gum, about not drinking. Like I have a dog, I take her out for a walk, or just going outside, and totally forgot because I'm so preoccupied with what's the curfew, when's the hours, when can we go outside? And so many times I've been like, okay, great, I can go and take the dog out now. It's time. Let me grab a water bottle and go. And I'm like, I can't do that. So yeah, just kind of keeping that in mind as well. And there's just been so many times where I'm just ready to walk out, gum in my mouth, water bottle in hand. And I'm like, yeah, don't forget that.
Yeah, just like what you mentioned with the habits before, like by the time you get into the routine and comfortable with that, then it's time to switch back. And I remember that being like, by the time I was finally comfortable with not drinking my water in the car or in public places, and I remember it's Ramadan's over and then I'm going to take a drink in my car and I get this moment of panic of like, is this allowed? Am I doing something bad and wrong right now? Which ultimately I think people are really patient with us as expats, and I don't think they put a lot of pressure on us to.
I know. I always just feel that if like if I'm driving along, and I've done this before, like, of course, there's been times that I've forgotten. I mean, not this, obviously lockdown, not this time, but I've actually forgotten and been in the car with a water bottle and like gone to take a sip. It's just like, I think, of course, if I put it down and I did get stopped or something, not being scared of that, but more so like kind of like looking around and being like, so sorry, like in my car on my own, but thinking like, these people are actually thirsty. Like I just had a drink of water before I left my house. And I'm like, gosh, I couldn't even make it like this drive without like flying my water bottle around or something.
Right. Totally new perspective.
I was going to say too, the other thing I think that at least for me, one of the things that I changed too was I never wore shorts when I was in Kuwait out in public, just out of respect So during Ramadan, I would stop wearing tank tops even. I mean, it was always like quarter length, like just be a little more respectful. I have been out with some people during Ramadan who were wearing tank tops, and it was not good. They were told how disrespectful they were being, especially during this time. And so I know that was kind of something that I just, like I said, just being respectful. So just making sure like shoulders are covered, pants are on, like not so.
Never leave home without your pants.
Yeah,
Rule number one. No, that's a really good point, Danica. I remember that too. I think the first year that I was there, I was definitely more lax with the tank top and things in public. And Ramadan, it was like in August. And I remember it was very, very hot. And walking to the grocery store, I would be in my tank top and it's Ramadan and nobody's out. And I'm thinking it's not a big deal. That you do find over time and after some more conversation with people and anything and just understanding a little bit more about it, like how disrespectful it can be. And now it's to the point where I can be out in the middle of summer in those long sleeve Swiftleys and I'm totally fine. And it doesn't matter. And people are like, how are you working out in long sleeves and pants right now? And it's just like, I think the moral of the story is that you do anything for 3 weeks, it's a habit. You can change anything.
The new normal.
New normal. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, I was just in Florida and I like had my sweatshirt on like for part of the day, and my dad's like, "What? Aren't you hot?" And I was like, I didn't even think about it. I was like, "Oh, whatever." I was just already in these long sleeves. I just kept on going with my day. So like I'm so used to covering up now.
I committed in the morning and there was no changing it after that.
No. It's done. I'm not doing more laundry, people.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for sharing your experience with Ramadan and expat life. It's always good to have you on.
Thank you for having us.
I hope everyone's having a great Ramadan, even during lockdown in Kuwait.
Yes. Wishing everybody the best.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
More time to reflect, more time to plan, to reflect, etc.
I need to find the name of these. I need to find the name of these dough ball things.
Yeah,
can
I
make
know what
them.
you're talking about, but I don't. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get comments on it. We'll definitely figure it out.
That is something you can send me a recipe in my Instagram DMs, just not roses. Okay, people.
There you go.
So send me the recipe so I can try and make it at home.
So if you are a dude that is trying to slip into Danica's DMs, she doesn't want emojis. She wants the recipe for.
At least if it's going to be emojis, make it like some sort of puzzle. Like, I have to like figure out what it means. You know, it's just like a rose. And I'm like, I don't even know who you are or what to say to this.
It's all the ingredients to make the dessert that you want. So they'll have to put that in. There you go.
Dakota.
Emojis.
I'm gonna be screen snapping. What is this emoji? What does this mean?
Science experiment.
Oh yeah, this will be fun.
I love it. Keep us posted. Tag us in it.
Oh, I will. Yes. I will.
All right. Love you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, ladies. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. You can also find us on Instagram at The Project Kuwait. Thank you, and join us next time.